Keystones unearthed. I'm August Vane. Tonight. The 1513 map that shows a continent no one had found yet. Piri Reis was not an obscure figure lost to history. He was a respected Ottoman naval commander, a nephew of the famous Admiral Kemal Reis, who spent decades at sea before eventually rising to admiral of the entire Ottoman fleet in the Indian Ocean. Beyond his naval career, Piri Reis was also a serious cartographer, later compiling an extensive maritime guidebook called the Kitab-i-Bahri, detailing coastlines, harbors, and sailing routes across the entire Mediterranean in remarkable practical detail. In 1929, staff cataloging the vast archives of the old Ottoman imperial residence in Istanbul, Topkapi Palace, uncovered a torn sheet of gazelle-skin parchment tucked among unrelated administrative documents. It was a map, hand-drawn and painted in the year 1513, signed by Piri Reis himself. What survives today is only roughly one-third of what was originally a much larger world map, the rest lost or never recovered. The surviving fragment accurately charts the western coastline of Africa and the eastern coastline of South America, rendered with a level of coastal detail unusual for any surviving European or Ottoman map from that early period. Along the bottom edge of the fragment sits a landmass that a number of cartographic historians, beginning seriously in the 1950s, have argued corresponds to the northern coastline of Antarctica. The obvious problem, Antarctica would not be officially sighted by any confirmed European expedition until 1820, more than 3 centuries after Piri Reis completed this particular map in Ottoman Gallipoli. The claim became genuinely famous in 1966, when American college professor Charles Hapgood published a book arguing the coastline matched Antarctica's actual shape beneath its modern ice sheet, implying whoever originally surveyed it did so before the ice fully formed. Hapgood's specific ice-free coastline claim has been heavily disputed by mainstream cartographers and geologists ever since, many of whom argue the matching outline is more plausibly a stretched, distorted, or simply misinterpreted section of the actual South American coast. What isn't disputed is the map's own internal documentation. Piri Reis included extensive handwritten notes directly on the parchment, explicitly explaining, in his own words, exactly how he compiled the material. He wrote that he relied on roughly 20 older source maps, some he attributed to the era of Alexander the Great, others to Arab and Portuguese sailors, and significantly, one he claimed was drawn by Christopher Columbus himself, based on Columbus's own western voyages. No confirmed map by Columbus's own hand survives anywhere else in the historical record today. If Piri Reis's sourcing claim is accurate, his 1513 map may be the closest surviving link to whatever Columbus actually charted on his voyages. None of the roughly 20 source maps Piri Reis listed by name have ever been located by historians in any archive, which leaves his sourcing claims fundamentally unverifiable, however accurate his finished map ultimately turned out to be. This gap between a bold claim and missing evidence has fueled decades of speculation, ranging from cautious academic hypotheses to considerably more fringe theories about where such unusually precise source information could have originated. On the far end of that speculation, some writers, most famously Eric von Daniken in his Ancient Astronaut Theories of the 1970s, proposed the map reflected knowledge passed down from an advanced lost civilization or even extraterrestrial visitors. Mainstream historians and cartographers overwhelmingly reject that framing, and it's worth being direct about why. There is no supporting archaeological, genetic, or written evidence anywhere for a technologically advanced prehistoric civilization capable of global mapping. The far more widely accepted explanation is more modest, and arguably more interesting, that Piri Reis compiled genuinely skilled, if imperfect, contemporary sailors' charts from multiple real sources, and that his map's apparent accuracy reflects real cartographic skill blended with a measure of coincidence. Coastal outlines drawn from direct sailing observation, without modern surveying instruments, can be surprisingly accurate over well-traveled stretches, then drift into rough guesswork the moment a sailor's actual first-hand knowledge runs out. That exact pattern, sharp accuracy near well-documented coasts fading into speculation further along, is precisely what specialists in historical cartography find when they study the Piri Reis map's disputed southern edge in careful detail. It's worth noting Piri Reis himself never once claimed his map depicted an unknown southern continent. That specific interpretation was applied by researchers centuries later, working backward from modern geography rather than from anything Piri Reis actually wrote himself. Piri Reis's own life ended violently and for reasons that had nothing to do with cartography. In 1553, in his 80s, he was executed by Ottoman authorities following a failed naval campaign in the Persian Gulf, a political casualty of court intrigue rather than his map-making legacy. The map's modern fame owes a great deal to a specific 1960 evaluation. U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Commander Harold Z. Allmeyer wrote to Charles Hapgood claiming military cartographers found the southern coastline plausible as a match for Antarctica's subglacial bedrock topography, a claim that spread widely despite never being formally peer-reviewed. That informal military correspondence, rather than any peer-reviewed academic study, became the primary citation repeated across decades of popular books and articles, illustrating how a single unverified claim can outlive the scrutiny that would normally be applied to a scientific argument. The Piri Reis map sits within a broader European and Ottoman tradition called portolan charts, detailed coastal maps built up over generations by compiling countless individual sailors' route notes, harbor sketches, and compass bearings into a single working document. This tradition explains both the map's genuine strengths and its genuine limits, extraordinary detail and accuracy along frequently sailed trade routes, and increasingly rough, speculative detail the further the underlying source sailors had actually traveled. The map has also become a recurring reference point in the broader alternative history and lost civilization movement, popularized by writers like Graham Hancock, who cited alongside sites such as Göbekli Tepe as evidence for a technologically sophisticated prehistoric global civilization. Mainstream archaeologists and historians of cartography continue to push back on that framing specifically, arguing the map is best explained by real, documented age of exploration sailing knowledge rather than requiring any lost advanced civilization to account for its accuracy. What keeps this particular map more famous than hundreds of other surviving historical charts isn't really the disputed coastline alone. It's the combination of a real, respected historical figure, a genuinely unresolved technical debate, and a tantalizingly incomplete document, missing exactly the parts that could settle the question for good. Piri Reis wasn't working in isolation from the wider Ottoman intellectual world. The empire at the time maintained active diplomatic and trade contact with Venice, Genoa, and Portugal, giving an experienced admiral like him plausible access to captured or purchased foreign charts. Captured European ships and their navigational documents were a genuine, well-documented source of intelligence for Ottoman naval commanders throughout this period, giving real historical grounding to Piri Reis's own claim of compiling foreign source material. A second, less famous Piri Reis map fragment, showing part of the Americas, surfaced later and is held today at the Topkapi archives alongside the first, giving historians additional material to cross-check his sources and methods against. Modern digital analysis, overlaying the map onto satellite coastline data using Geographic Information System software, has allowed researchers to measure the actual degree of coastal distortion far more precisely than earlier visual comparisons ever could. UNESCO listed the Kitab-i-Bari, Piri Reis's broader maritime guidebook, as part of its Memory of the World program as well, recognizing his cartographic legacy as significant well beyond the one famous, disputed 1513 fragment. More than 5 centuries after it was drawn, the map continues to draw fresh academic papers nearly every decade, a rare case of a single historical document that keeps generating genuine, unresolved scholarly debate rather than settling into agreed consensus. The map itself survives today exactly where it was rediscovered back in 1929, held in the Topkapi Palace Library in Istanbul, and remains one of the most closely studied surviving pieces of Ottoman-era cartography anywhere in the world. Whether the disputed coastline is pure coincidence, a distorted rendering of South America, or genuinely older source material now lost to history, it remains a rare case of a 500-year-old document that serious historians are still actively arguing about today. Look at the evidence. Decide for yourself. I'm August Vane.